Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, executive coach for high performing women. Join me for inspiring conversations with over 500 women leaders around the world as they share how they excelled in their careers or launched successful businesses and the important role that support played along the way. Because as we always say, having it all does not mean doing it all alone. Here we go. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so happy to have you here. You know it just would not be the same without you. And today I am so happy to welcome back my friend, Dr. Zoe Shaw. Zoe was first on episode 634 back May 2019. It's early in when we first met. We don't remember how we first met or got connected, but she was on my podcast in May of 2019. That was 3 years in at that point. Can't believe it. Then she was again featured on the podcast and in my book, Get Over I Got It. She is I can't remember the chapter number, but it's called Retire Your Cape, where she talks about getting over Superwoman syndrome, retiring that cape, really becoming intentional about the things on which you spend your time. Today, she is breaking down a term that she coined called complex shame. And it's I will say for me, it was such a powerful conversation, not just because I always love having an impromptu therapy session when I speak to her, because she's so knowledgeable and empathetic and thoughtful and really pushes me to think, but also because I think you all are going to get a lot out of it as you think about success, failure, certainly shame, what that means, how to unpack it, what kind of information it's giving us, what it's telling us, how to let some things go, things we should take with us. Just really an evaluation of self in a courageous and kind and loving way that extends ourselves the grace that we damn well deserve. Okay? That's what it is. So I love this conversation with Dr. Zoe. I know you're going to enjoy it. She has a new book coming out in September that we're going to make sure to support called Stronger in the Difficult Places, How to Heal Yourself from Complex Shame. That's also the name of her podcast that I want you to make sure to check out. But now, without further ado, I want you to hear my conversation with Dr. Zoe Shaw. So, I'm so happy to see your beautiful face again this morning. And like we started talking about, I can't believe it's been okay. So, the first time you were on the show was May 2019. That was episode 634. Can you believe it?
No.
Then you were in my book, Get Over I Got It, which came
Right.
out in 2021. And for everyone
Yeah.
listening, Dr. Zoe is the Retire Your Cape chapter. So make sure
Mm,
you check that out. But now we're in 2025. At least that's when we're recording this. Who knows? 5 years from now, we'll do another conversation. But that's when
yes,
we're
I hope we
recording this
do.
now. I know, we definitely will. And we'll make sure to touch voices more often.
Yes.
But let's talk about where you are now. What has life been like for you in the past 4 years since we last spoke, quote unquote, in person?
Yes, that is such a good question, Elaine. Life, and it changes, and that's the that's one of the things that I really love about life. I think that's why I have such a zest for life because there's always something new right around the corner, right? But my life has changed significantly. Probably when I talked to you, I probably had 4 kids in the house. I was married, and I'm no longer married, and I have one baby left in my home. So my kids are flying the nest. It's me and my 12-year-old daughter, and my business has changed a lot too. I'm doing way more speaking. I'm a lot of writing. I have a 2 book deal with Penguin Random House right now. So my first book is almost finished. It's coming out in September, which I'm so thrilled about. And I have another book due. So my life is writing and speaking and raising my beautiful 12-year-old last baby. And it's good. It's such a good life. Good life.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's amazing. And like you said, changing and evolving and all the ways that all of us go through at different points in our lives and stages of our lives. What is it like to almost be an empty nester at this point?
Oh my goodness. You know, it's so different because I was a mom who worked full time, had my own business, and homeschooled my children at the same time because I just,
Because,
because why
you
not?
have no ambition at all. That's why.
Right. And actually yesterday, because today's Friday, yesterday, I feel like I retired from the biggest part of my homeschooling because my daughter is now going into seventh grade. So we finished up our sixth grade homeschool co-op, which is where I have to really participate and be. And although I will homeschool her for another 2 years, it's just not going to be that labor heavy the way that we're doing it. And so not only are my children grown and I get to go visit them and talk to them on the phone, my older four, but even my home life with my daughter, it's just beautiful because I have never had just one child.
The
I
house has
had
been
my
full for a
first,
long
right.
time, right?
And 2 years later, we had the others, and they just, so to just be able to focus on my one daughter and know that in a number of years, she's gonna fly the nest too. I almost feel like just a beautiful gift because my older children are so much older, and I had that experience of parenting them. And it's not like I'm a grandma, but I just parent with this sense of ease and comfort. And it's beautiful. And I see the results in my parenting with my daughter. We're friends, but not inappropriate friends, right? But we have this deep friendship and connection that I wasn't able to have with my older children because I was so I don't want to use the word anxious, but I could possibly use that word, just so focused on wanting to parent them perfectly that now with my last one, I'm like, I got this. And I can
Yes.
relax into it and it's beautiful.
What's the age range? 12 to the oldest is
Yeah, so
20.
so my oldest is 32 and my baby
32.
is
First of all, I
12.
can't wait for you all to just look at this beautiful face when she says that her oldest is 32, which you will see in the picture that will go with the podcast. But I think you tell me this every time, and I always say, I can't
Right.
believe the range of your
Yes.
children. Does everyone say that?
Oh, yes. Everybody says
Yes.
that. People think that I'm my son's girlfriend when we hang out together. But
Right.
yes, I have a 32-year-old and a 12-year-old. That's my gap.
That's
And
your gap.
it's a big
Yes,
gap.
I was what do they call not I don't say uh-oh baby.
Oh, I have a surprise.
Surprise
My
baby.
12-year-old is my surprise baby. I tell her,
Yes,
she
I
knows. We
was a
all know it.
surprise baby.
Biggest
Like,
blessing.
hey, guess what? You thought you were done.
Oh,
So the
they're
range
the
with me and
best.
my sister is 17 years, and
Okay.
I definitely see the
Mhm.
difference in how my parents well, I
Yes.
don't see it. I experienced it
Yeah.
after talking to her and hearing how she was
Right.
parented very differently versus with me. So what has changed about you speaking, you mentioned perfectionism, for example, or wanting to, get it right and all the reasons
Yeah.
that parents think about with their children. What changed about you between your child that's what 20 years older
Hmm.
than
Hmm.
your daughter now as a woman, not even just as a parent? What do you feel like evolved that's
Oh
making
my
you approach this
goodness.
differently?
Yeah. As a woman, I have really come into my own. And that's the most beautiful, juicy, happy feeling to be able to just even say that and feel that so deeply in my soul. I have overcome codependency. I've overcome complex shame. I have been able to get to a place where I deeply own who I am and I love who I am. And I I live just my life without I guess without compromise, right? And it's beautiful because I also still have been able to do that and maintain my nurturing, loving, empathic side. And I know a lot of women think that when you get to this place of full ownership of self, it feels selfish, right? And you feel that maybe that feels cold or hard. And my answer is no, 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 no. We can love others even more when we're able to deeply love ourselves and accept ourselves. So I can see over the course of, a 20-year-old girl that I was, to my 50-year-old self now, um, I've just, as Michelle Obama has said, become, right? I have become, and I've fully come into who I am. And a lot of that is learning to untangle so many things that have been unhealthy in my life, and untangle, just those influences and recognize that, um, really just find who I am, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's
No, that
beautiful.
does make
And
sense.
it affects our parenting. It affects all of our relationships, every single one of them.
Talk to me about that term that you mentioned, complex shame. I know that's a phrase that you coined. What does that what does
Yeah.
that mean? How do you define that?
Ah, so complex shame is a type of shame that is more difficult to overcome and heal than what I call simple shame. And simple shame's not that simple, but it's just an easy way to differentiate complex from simple shame. And so when we think about shame, Brene Brown has been very famous and talking about how shame can be overcome by being vulnerable and experiencing empathy from other people. And shame just kind of deteriorates. And that's true for most shame. But what I have found is that for certain types of shame, unfortunately, that doesn't apply. And Tarana Burke,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Tarana
right.
Burke.
Yes, Tarana Book, even in her book, talked about the fact that she tried that concept of Brene Brown and it didn't work. And so what happened for her is that it actually created more shame because then she felt shame over the fact that her shame wasn't going away in the way that it was supposed to go away. And
Mm.
that started to pique my interest because I had had a similar experience. And I started thinking, so what's different about this shame? Right? And that's why I termed it complex shame. But what I found out about this shame, and it is probably disproportionately present in marginalized communities. And one of the reasons is because when people who are marginalized in society are vulnerable about their shame, often what happens is that they're gaslighted about their shame. And so their shame does go deeper. That's one way that complex shame stays attached to yourself. The other is what happens with our shame with people who have complex shame is we tend to be internalizers and we take it all in. Some people are externalizers, right? In terms of just the way that they tend to move in the world. And so they will project their shame out. Sometimes we call those people kind of toxic shame people. But internalizers, we pull it all in. We take it, we accept it, we internalize it, and we're really toxic to ourselves, right? And what happens is that when we have shame and we feel a shaming incident and we hide, what we also do is we tend to hurt ourselves in our hiding. We run from ourselves and we do it in lots of different ways. Sometimes it's external things like drugs, alcohol, sex, distractions, and sometimes it's internal things. But when we do that, when we harm ourselves as a result of our shame, then when someone comes to us and we finally are vulnerable, maybe, and we're trying to talk about our shame, and someone says, "Oh, it wasn't your fault," and they're really, and a lot of therapists will do that, help you to release your kind of fault for things that happen to you, but there's something in your brain that says, "Oh, no, 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 no. You don't understand. You don't know." Right? And so we're not able to even accept empathy when it happens. And so what I found with complex shame is that what we have to do is we need to learn to untangle it from our identity, number one. We also need to learn to take it apart piece by piece and go ahead and do what our brain needs us to do, which is take accountability for the parts that all the things we did hurting ourselves and running from ourselves, and even any part we may feel fairly or unfairly that we have, and maybe our own victimization, and forgive ourselves. And when we're able to actually forgive ourselves for all those things that we did or didn't do, then we can begin to untangle it from our identity and see it as separate. Then we can begin to maybe start to be vulnerable and accept compassion internally and externally. And so that's the process of complex shame.
So how do we then identify that? And I hadn't heard that about Tarana Burke's book. I'm going to look at it too, and just this idea of, I think it's hopefully people catch. We hear all these different theories or people that we follow. I love Brene Brown, as
I do
many
too.
people do. I love her
Yes.
messaging and all those
Yes.
things, as I know you were saying too. But sometimes we hear these things like, "Well, that didn't work for me. Am I broken?" We
Mm,
might immediately take
yes.
on, or I'm not doing it right,
Right.
or some of the ways you think, and it's tied up in so much. There's so much more, or it's so much deeper than, oh, you're doing this thing wrong, or you should be able
Mm,
to, snap out of it, for lack of a better
right.
phrase. So thank you for sharing that, just for anything that people, Brene Brown, Mel Robbins, Oprah, whoever, we all
Mhm.
have to decide or determine, I guess, how these things impact us or work with us in our lives. That said, so complex shame, how do we then identify that for ourselves to see if, oh, this might be something I need to be aware of?
Right. Yes, I will answer that question, but I just wanted to make a point that in Tarana's book, and I don't know if it was a
It was with several authors,
anthology.
right?
Yes,
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 I
it
have
was
it
an
in
anthology.
storage. I don't have it here, but I have
You
it.
got to read it. It's so good. But
Yes.
Brene Brown actually wrote, I think, the forward or a part of the book. And
Mm-hmm.
she addressed what Tarana Burke said. And she said, my research is sound. My research shows that this works, but lived experiences trump research. And you're talking about something. And I love that Brene Brown just honored Tarana's experience.
Yes.
She was
Mm-hmm.
able to fall back on what she knew, but also honor, but there's something else going on here. And I respect that and honor it because lived experiences trump research. And so that's something is what I've been diving into. Like, what is that something? Let me learn more about that. Let me understand. And so one of the ways that we can identify, first of all, we can identify shame in ourselves when we hide because shame tells us I'm wrong, I'm bad. So we all know about the difference between guilt and shame, but I'll just say it anyway for anyone who doesn't. Guilt is an emotional feeling that says I've done something wrong and I feel really bad about it. I've broken my moral code, I've broken somebody's moral code and I feel bad, right? And so the thing is that guilt is repairable because if you go back and fix it, if you choose not to do that thing anymore, we can alleviate guilt. Shame, on the other hand, says, I am bad. I, as a person, am worthless, bad. And when that happens, our brain doesn't have any recourse but to hide because we can't fix it if I am bad, right? And so all we can do is then hide. And so what we do is we tend to hide and we run. So if you find yourself in relationships and you're hiding, you're not feeling free and okay, whether in yourself or inside the space of the relationship to express all of who you are, you're experiencing shame. And the thing about shame and why it's so detrimental is because when we experience shame and we are in a relationship and someone loves us, we feel unloved because we are hiding. And so even though we know that they love us, we feel like, but they don't really love me. They don't really know and love all of me. And then that creates a ripple effect in a relationship because you may be being loved, but you don't feel loved. And then you're going to respond differently to your partner. And so hiding is one of the main things that we do when we feel shame. The other thing we do is we project shame onto other people. When we feel shame, we want to shame other people because it makes us feel
Mm.
better, right? And we do this in society, we do this in religious cultures, moms do it to children, it just is. But when you feel a need to shame someone else, it's probably because you're feeling shame as well. But when it comes to complex shame, when you find that you apply Brene Brown's principle of expressing vulnerability and receiving compassion and it doesn't work, then you've probably got complex shame. And it comes from those toxic messages in your childhood or relationships. It can sometimes come from trauma. And what happens is when we leave unhealthy places, when we leave unhealthy relationships, when we leave our family of origin, we often think, oh, we've left them, right? I'm starting a new life. Everything's new and fresh. But we don't realize that we just pack up all those words that they said to us and we bring them with us on
Right. Put
wherever
them in
in
a
the world we
suitcase,
go.
carry them wherever
We
you
carry
you
them
moved it
and we
along
just
with you.
repeat them to ourselves. And that just continues the shame cycle.
Oh, so much to unpack. I cannot wait for the TED Talk. I'm just going to say it here right now because I know the complex shame TED Talk is
Yes.
coming. If not, somebody put it on somebody's radar.
Right.
So much to unpack. I think what you just said, everything you said, but certainly for everyone to make sure to catch too, this idea of thinking we're leaving something behind. Yes, maybe that might be the case physically, whether it's a relationship or, divorce or a friendship that you're no longer. But a lot of the things if you're not conscious, it sounds like you're
Right.
saying, or
Yes.
aware of it, comes with
Intentional.
you. I mean, and even if it comes with you, just making sure that you're aware that I brought that thing with me. I still need to
Yep.
work on that thing.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
so funny you mentioned this because I recently was doing just some regular tasks, washing dishes or something, and someone crossed my mind who I'm no longer in contact with. It wasn't a bad
Mhm.
relationship, friendship, etc. But it wasn't, what's the word? It didn't work, right?
Yep.
So there's
Yep.
no longer,
Didn't need to
but
continue in your life.
didn't
Yes.
need to continue in my life, but I had a moment where I felt shame about not being able, was there anything I could have done? And which I guess maybe
Mhm.
isn't as much shame, or maybe it is, but I did have sort of some feeling came over me, a little bit
Mm.
of sadness, a little bit of, and
Yes.
then it felt based on what you're describing, like I might have some shame around this particular, interaction, relationship, etc. I'm not sure how to untangle that, but I am about to ask you how we untangle these things overall
Yes.
with complex shame. But again, it's being aware of these feelings. You think you left something behind or you think something's over and it comes back up, which I know this isn't particularly traumatic, but I
Mhm.
know that's a case with trauma too. These things
Yes.
come up for people, right?
Hmm.
So that said, well, one, do want to ask one thing though. Can children feel shame, even if they're not aware of how, complex shame and those kind of things? These aren't just adult challenges.
No, no, no. Children start to feel shame as early as 18 months. And what's interesting, I mean, humans are so amazing in the way our psychology works and the way that we interact with each other, is that children can feel shame just from, you remember, I'm sure, that look your mother gives you.
Yes, right.
You know that look. Um, it can create.
Shaming you is sometimes the shame on you would be a phrase that used to be, right? Shame on you, shame on you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And shame is such an unhealthy emotion to create in someone, but we do it as a society, we do it as humans. And the reason why we shame people is because there's this belief that if we shame someone, we will stop a behavior. And we
Hmm.
almost feel, especially as parents, like we're protecting them, we're keeping them from doing something wrong. And when we look at societally, it's like we're keeping you from ostracism, right? If we shame you, then you will stay in line and you will do all the things that you need to do as a healthy, productive citizen, right? But what research has shown is that shaming does not work. What happens is when you shame someone, remember, they hide. So it looks like the behavior goes away, but all it does is go underground. And
Mm.
so, what we have to remember as partners, as parents, as bosses, right, is that although shaming feels like a productive behavior, it actually doesn't work. And if you can remember that, then hopefully that will help you choose something different, which is constructive criticism without shame, which is having hard conversations, right? Talking about behavior, not addressing it and attaching it to a person and who they are as a person. Um, those kinds of things can actually create change rather than someone hiding.
And positioning it that way, I'm especially thinking about people in career settings or
Yep.
office settings, or as
Yes.
you said, with parents, it empowers the person, even though you're still
Yes.
correcting them or
Yes.
suggesting a different behavior,
Yes.
but it's not me, not as internalized, I would imagine. It's not
Mhm.
me, it's this behavior, and I have the power to make a different choice, to make a change,
Right.
as opposed to
Yes.
I'm flawed or broken in some kind of way. And like we say, even with a child might not be able to process it that way, but we're experiencing all the emotion of it, even if we can't
Mhm.
name it, right?
Yes, yes. Children begin to feel shame very early.
So then how do we, as children, but certainly as adults, once we identify, okay, I might be experiencing complex shame or something to look at here, what are some of the steps to start to untangle some of that?
Right. So, one of the first things is those messages. We want to start to pay attention to what are the messages that I'm saying to myself. And so, if someone's out there listening and thinking, I think this is going on with me, what I'd like to encourage them to do is to journal for a week. And when you feel sad, angry, frustrated, confused, any kind of negative feelings, I want you to pay attention to what are the words that you're saying to yourself about that. And so, I'd like to ask you, Elaine, when you started to feel some shame about that friend, what do you think you were saying to yourself about yourself?
Great question. I think one of the first things that comes to mind right now is this idea of, was it wrong for me to cut off this person or people like
Mhm.
that? Because I've at this, and I'm 50, just turned 52, so I think we're maybe around the same age.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I have little, I won't say little tolerance, but I'm very aware of, you know what, this isn't a great relationship, friendship, etc. And it's usually not hard feelings, but I do say, I don't interact as much, or I change the dynamic of the relationship. I had that in that moment. I was thinking, is that the right thing to do? I think it was more an overall question for me. I thought about this particular person or individual, but I started thinking, is that the right thing to do? Is it the nice thing to do? I had those kinds of thoughts in my head when I think back to that moment. And you know what? I didn't come up with a solid answer to that question, but I did at the end of it feel like, um, but I feel good right now. I don't feel like I did anything with bad intent. And that's what it kind of
Yeah.
came away with, right? I don't know, right or wrong. I guess it's all perspective. At least this is my theory at the time. But
Mhm.
yeah, even when I think about it now, it's just like, but if I feel like it was, I did it with the best intentions.
You did it with the best intentions. Yes. So we're going to go back because I think that
Okay.
conversation that you had with yourself was really good and healthy, and it got you to a place of validation, right? And acceptance. But I heard something in your voice that said, like, is it okay for me to do these kinds of things or to do it? So my question is, what do you think? Like, what is the message that you carry about people who do these kinds of things? People who cut people off or end relationships?
I wonder, again, I'll just say the first thing that comes to mind is failure. Like,
Mm,
was it a failed relationship, or did I
mhm,
fail to try hard enough? Or did you
mhm,
see the other person as a failure for not doing fill in the blank expectation that, so the word failure is the first thing that comes to mind when I think about it right now.
mhm. That's good because, and we could go even deeper, and I could keep going back and back, but we don't
I
need to do a therapy
exactly would
session
like a
right here.
session here. No, we can have a session.
Right.
I always love to have a
But
session. But yeah, no, I'm
but
happy to explore it to be an example. Yeah.
yeah, because when you use that word failure, we know that failure is attached to shame, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Exactly.
when you say maybe people who do that, or I am a failure if I let go of a relationship like that, my question would be, well, where does that message come from, and what does it mean to be a failure?
Mm. Yeah, not again, just first thing comes to mind, this idea of not trying hard enough. That's what it was associated. Like, did you try hard enough? Did you do everything that you needed to do or could do? And then on the other side of that, but did you need to do everything to order to make it work? Sometimes like they
Yeah,
say,
your
some come
courageous teller is
exactly.
pressing against that message, which is good, which is
Exactly.
good.
That's from a lot of work, therapy, coaching,
Hmm.
everybody else talking to you and writing
Yeah,
about all the things. But still,
yeah,
you do still have those, thoughts and those questions. And is it okay? I'll ask you for us to have those questioning moments or conversation with ourselves or those things when those things come up and not necessarily end up with a I have the beautiful benefit of talking to you about it now, but if I hadn't, it just would have been a conversation I had with myself without a
right.
real resolution. Are we
Yeah.
looking for resolution when we untangle
Well, I think
complex
we're
shame?
we're looking for information, and we're trying
Yeah.
to get to the bottom of the thing that we're actually feeling, because if we go back from, so we've made our way back from is it okay to, because if it's not, I'm a failure. And if, and
Hmm.
that also means I didn't try hard enough, and not trying hard enough and failing is so associated to shame. But then my question is, well, where did that message come from? Like, where was that message that you have to always try harder or be better or not fail, right? And we don't have to get into that. But
My
what's
dad, I think,
important, your
first
dad.
thing comes,
Yeah.
yeah, very
Yeah.
much do the right thing because it's the right thing. Very, from the
Hmm.
military,
Hmm.
very,
Yes, my
there are
dad.
some better,
Same,
right?
same. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like just my dad was very, yeah, just, oh, you say you do the right thing because it's the right thing. And then right thing is what comes from that messaging, right? Was that the right thing to do? Did I right? Did I fail from not doing my dad's
If it
disappoint?
wasn't, then you were wrong. And go ahead and talk about disappointment.
And I was just going to say, and his disappointment was always something for me that I would never want to do or never want to be on the other end of. And he wasn't a very emotional or what's the word, emotive? Is that the word?
Mhm.
Expression of
Yeah.
emotive
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
But you still could tell if
Yep.
there was disappointment, you could always just feel it, right? You just,
Yes.
those dads, those
Uh-huh.
ones. He's like, and
Mhm.
it's funny, recently I was thinking, or maybe I had a conversation about it, where people say, I'm a daddy's girl, I'm this or that. I actually think I really wanted to be a daddy's girl, but I don't know if I actually was one. You just want daddy's girl sometimes mean
Yes.
I just wanted daddy's approval,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
It's like, were you
Yes.
daddy's girl? Like, I don't, anyway, that's a whole other. But that said, that shares some about my relationship with my dad. But that's the first thing that comes to mind, messaging wise, of did you try hard enough? Did you give it your all? Did you do? It comes from him.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like we had
Yeah.
very similar dads.
Yeah.
So the answer is we want to go back there because often we are our like even when we're trying to help ourselves, we're talking about the surface thing, right? We're trying to make ourselves feel better about, oh yeah, that's okay. But we're not addressing the deeper thing, which is, am I a failure? Am I a disappointment? Right? And so if we're able
Mm-hmm.
to start to see, oh, these are where my shame messages go, then we can go faster. When we have that first little trigger of feeling bad about the friend, instead of talking to yourself about those surface things, we can go back to, oh, Elaine, I see what this is. This is just your shame over feeling like maybe you're a disappointment to your father, or that maybe you are a failure. So let's just talk about that. Let's reassure,
Mm-hmm.
use your what I call the courageous truth teller voice to talk about that point instead of the surface thing about the friend, if that makes sense. So that's how we start to untangle that shame. And that's why I want your listeners to start to journal and write the things that they're saying to themselves and kind of back it up. Where did that come
Mm-hmm.
from? What does that message mean? And what does that mean? And who said that to me? And the thing that is so important for people to understand is that the messages, the lessons that we learn the deepest were often never spoken to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were communicated to us through a look, a nod, a shake of the head, silence, the lessons we learn in childhood. And so sometimes someone will say, well, my father never said he was disappointed in me, but you might have gotten that message very clear, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so we have to kind of go back there and understand where these messages came from so that we can start to untangle them.
It's interesting with my dad. Just they both of my parents passed away last what's this year? Yes, 2024. And
Wow.
in his last years, he was of well mind, well into his
Mhm.
90s, mowing the lawn until like 92. But in the
Right.
last couple of years,
Yeah.
dementia and things
Mhm.
started to set in, and he would start to say things. A lot of elderly people start to revert back to as they
Yes,
were when they were
I
younger, right?
do.
So he was
Mhm.
very gentle and loving, and I was like loving him up the whole time. He probably hated it, but he wasn't saying, or maybe not. Maybe he did. He pretended to all his life, and then at this age,
Yeah.
he allowed it. But the thing I noticed was that he started mentioning things that he was sorry or regretful about throughout his life or disappointed about, especially his relationship with my brother, who was, we mentioned earlier, is much older and he wasn't
Right.
there because my dad was in the service. My brother was, it was
Hmm.
they were at a different stage
Different.
in their life.
Yes.
When I
Yes.
came along, they were in their 40s, they were home, they had
Yeah.
money, it was different. So,
Hmm.
but he would say little things and I didn't know because I wasn't there. And I would ask my mom about it and she would say, oh, he's talking about this or he's talking about that. So it's interesting, even someone who I never saw as disappointed in himself because he was always so right and always chose the right
Mm-hmm.
thing in my vision.
Yes.
Oh, this now, and I only realized this from talking to you about it now. He was having moments where he's releasing, at least that's what I hope is happening, releasing some of the shame
Oh,
or
shame.
speaking the
Yes.
things that he's been
Yes.
carrying,
Mm.
70 something years at this point. So we're saying for everyone listening, we don't want you to carry
You
it
don't.
for all
Yes.
those years, and you don't have to,
You
right? Just
don't. Yeah.
unpack that bag. So tell us then about your book that's coming out. First of all, I did not miss that you have a two-book deal with Penguin Random House, you said, right? Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
beautiful.
Thank
Congratulations on that.
you.
As an author, that's amazing.
Yes.
And I know you have other, but I had your last book, is it you, right?
A year of self-care.
A year
Yes.
of self-care, a
Yes.
year of self-care. And then now you have Stronger in the Difficult Places, How to Heal Yourself from Complex Shame, which comes out
Exactly.
September
It comes
2025.
out September. Yes. The same
Can't
name
wait.
as my podcast. And this book is different than my year of self-care. This book is, I want to say part memoir. It's a narrative nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
It tells my story, my personal shame story, and my journey of overcoming shame, but is also very prescriptive and that it helps a woman, man, anyone understand complex shame, how it applies in their life, and how they can untangle it themselves. So it is kind of a two part.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And I always personally as a reader truly relate to those kinds of formats for
Hmm.
when the person tells a little of their story as much as they want to, obviously, and then
Right.
how does it relate to what they're talking about. But tell me about this phrase though, stronger in the difficult places.
Hmm. I, so, first of all, I love your book, Get Over I Got It Syndrome,
Thank
right? Or Get
you.
Over I Got It, because we Black women are taught through multi-generational processes to be strong. And I know there's also a lot of pushback against that, healthy pushback, because we are human, right? And we have to honor our limitations and we have to learn interdependence in a healthy way, but there's many reasons why we haven't. And so I have always very much attached myself to the concept of strength. Um, but at the same time, understanding that strength is also, like you said in your book, learning how to reach out for help, learning how to ask for help, learning how to let people help us. And I've had a lot in my personal life. I've had a lot of difficulties, right? And what I have learned is that we can, in those spaces where we actually have weakness, and I like to think about it as broken bones. You know, when you break a bone, that place where the bone is broken actually heals stronger than the rest of the bone, which is just the
Mm.
method of how our bodies heal and our minds do as well. And so, my hope for all women, for everyone really, is that we can see our lives in that way when we look at those broken places in our lives and those difficult places in our lives, that we can actually be stronger there. We can build that so much resilience, and it's not about doing it all on our own. It's learning
Hmm.
how to care for ourselves in all the ways. So that's what stronger in the difficult places means to me. And that's what I try to help women do, especially women in difficult relationships.
Are people able to pre-order the book yet?
Yes, it's
Or
on
that'll be
Amazon right now. The cover is
perfect.
not there, although we just finalized the cover. I'm so excited. We won't be sharing it until June, but
Do
you
you
can
like
go
the
on
cover?
Amazon. I love it. I love
Oh,
it.
good, good, good.
Yeah.
Because I know that couple cover battle can be hard sometimes. I know with, with shirts, we can talk about that. So that's what you seem like. Do you love it? That's a great
Yes,
step.
I do.
Good.
I love the cover. We came to a really good place, but it's available now. You can go on Amazon, Stronger in
I'm
the
about to
Difficult
do
Places,
that.
pre-order it, and yeah, yeah.
Excellent. So what is one thing you want to make sure that everyone either knows about being stronger in those difficult places or about how to approach complex shame? Um, yeah, what's one thing you want to make sure we all
Hmm.
take from this?
I think the first thing is hope, because one of the things that I dislike about books that talk about psychological issues or past trauma is that sometimes it just makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like, oh, these are all the ways that I'm screwed up, right? And so what I've done with my book is as I put a dose of hope at the end of every single chapter, because the point of understanding your trauma, the point of understanding the places where you need to be healed is not so that you can just know more bad things about yourself. The point is that there is hope. And so, no matter where you are on your journey, I just want you to understand and know that if you are intentional, which you are because you're listening to this podcast, right?
Mhm.
If you are intentional, which you are, there is hope for healing. And the other thing is that it's important to remember that the only people that we can control are ourselves. And that's a gift and that's a beautiful thing. Because often when we're in a lot of pain, we're often trying to control people around us and fix them, right? And my
Mhm.
tagline is like we're only fixing ourselves, right? We fix ourselves because that changes everything. And what we know about the physics of relationships and whether all relationships in your life is that if you change yourself, if you heal yourself, the rest of the system, whatever system you're in, has to change. There's a ripple effect. And so focus on yourself, focus on your healing, and know that there is hope. That's it.
Beautiful. And would you say, knowing, I love what you said about knowing the rest of the system has to change. It might not change where
Uh,
everybody's all okay. You know what I was gonna say, right? That changed right me back to me having that moment washing the dishes. Like I now I'm gonna be like, you know what? The system changed. The system changed and that this dynamic changed. Right? Everybody might
yeah.
not buy in. Like you said, you can only fix yourself.
You can only fix yourself. And I know that is the scary part too, is that there's no promise that they're going to do what you want them to do because remember, we can't
Right.
control them. The promise, though, is that as you get healthier, everything around you does get healthier. Now, sometimes that means that some things have to distance themselves from you or go away. And I know that can feel scary. But if you think about the end result is health and happiness and peace, it's good. It's good. And it's worth it.
It's good and it's worth it. Oh my gosh, virtual hug to you. I always have such a great conversation with you. Tell everyone where they can find you, learn more from you, follow you. Of course, I'll have links to everything in your book. We'll make sure to, but tell everyone where to find
Thank
Dr.
you.
Zoe.
Yes. Elaine, I love talking to you too. I don't
Same
even
here.
remember how I found you, but I just adore you.
I
You can
know,
find
same
me,
here.
you can find me at Dr. Zoe Shaw, DrZoeShaw, pretty much everywhere. That's my link on all my socials and my website as well.com. And my podcast is Stronger in the Difficult Places, and so is my book.
Fantastic. Dr. Zoe, thank you so much. Hold on one
Yeah.
second.
Okay.